Healing when you've been hurt. We've all been hurt one way or another. We want to heal. Sometimes we just want to keep hurting, but most of the time we really want to be healed. How can that happen? Well, in the word for you today, this Tuesday, December the 16th, we look at the scripture passage of Psalm 147, verse 3. And it says, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. He is being God. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up the wounds. The whole Psalm 147 is a psalm of praise for what God has done for his people. Now let's take a look at who the He is. He is God. Heals. God doesn't put a Band-Aid on things. He makes things new. God will take something that's broken, and he doesn't just kind of patch it up, put some glue on it. No, God fixes it completely. He makes it whole. He makes it all new. He heals the brokenhearted. Brokenhearted speaks of someone whose heart is broken into a million pieces. It's kind of like dropping a glass jar on the floor, a hard concrete surface, and it just shatters into so many pieces. The idea of putting it back together, virtually impossible. That's the brokenheartedness that he can heal. In verse 2, this is verse he heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds is verse 3. But verse 2 talks of the exiles, those who were taken from their homes in Jerusalem, taken to Babylon, and their religion, they took away their religion, took away their language, took away everything. They were totally broken. Who they were, their very identity was in a sense taken. It says, binds up their wounds. So God heals, completely heals the brokenhearted, those who just totally impossible to put back together, but somehow he can do that. He binds up their wounds. Binds up the wounds has the idea of lovingly and carefully wrapping something and taking care of it. And one reason he does that because he is a compassionate God. He desires to heal. He desires to take that is broken and torn and pull it back together and not just patch it up, but to heal it, to make it completely well. When we've been hurt and it seems like God is doing nothing at all, and we feel like we are the brokenhearted, we need to remember some things. First of all, that God may be silent, but he is working. He's never still. God is always at work. Matthew tells us that. And number two, if we have to wait, there's a purpose in the waiting. If you're waiting, if you feel brokenhearted and you're having to wait, there's a purpose in the waiting. Maybe it's so that we can get a better understanding of how other people feel when they're brokenhearted. And three, just as the darkness of the storm gives way to the light of day, so the darkness in our hearts can be changed to light of day. Just like you see a storm come. Storm clouds, it gets cloudy, it's storming, but we know on the other side of that, the sun's going to come out, and it's going to make everything look better. Well, that's the way it is in our life, too. We may be brokenhearted, but there will come a day. It won't rain always. There'll come a day when the sun will shine, and we just need to trust God for that. And realize it's only possible through God. That's the only way it's possible, through him. And then we must turn to him and allow him to bind up our wounds, to allow him to heal, not patch our broken heart, but to totally heal us. Is there anything you're struggling with now that you've been brokenhearted about? Maybe it's a loss of someone. Maybe it's health. Maybe it's finance. Maybe you just feel absolutely brokenhearted and you just need to be healed, but you don't see any hope. Trust God with that. Trust God. Sometimes he does things in a way we don't expect. Tony Campolo was a pastor, and he went to pray with a family. Wife called him and asked if he would come and pray over her husband, and he did. He prayed over her. The man was not a believer. He actually wasn't a very nice guy. But Tony Campolo went and prayed for him. He had an illness that they said was terminal. So he prayed over this man, and they both, well, the lady anyway, thanked him. And so he left. A few weeks later, he got a phone call from the wife, and she said, I just want you to know that he was suffering with cancer, and Tony's thinking, all right, he's healed. She said, he died yesterday. And then Tony's going, oh, no. She said, but he wasn't cured of his illness, but he was totally healed. She said the last 2 days of his life were the best 2 days of our marriage together. He said he's always been very angry and bitter but after you prayed for him, she said, there seemed to be a peace come over him. And the next couple of days were 2 of the best days we've ever had. And I know that while he wasn't cured of his illness here on earth, that God healed him. And I'll always treasure those 2 days that we had. Well, now, asking God to heal someone, and they die, that we're thinking, okay, things are not working out. But isn't it like God to do things in an unexpected way? Here, God, he did heal the man. Why couldn't he have lived longer then so they could have enjoyed more days? Don't know. Only God knows that. But his wife sure enjoyed those 2 days. And she was sure that she would see him again in heaven. So when you've been hurt, would you allow God to heal you? He heals the brokenhearted, those that have no hope, and he binds up their wounds. What wound do you need God to bind up for you today? And will you allow him to heal you? Have a nice day.